including gender equality, but the media sector, environment, very, very different areas. And during my 3 years in Zambia, I have met in different positions youth and others who attended these courses. And I think that's rewarding to see that they have somehow maybe benefited a bit to get a push in their career, in their plans for their future, to get new ideas on how they can contribute also themselves to build a stronger, better society.
Thank you. And I'm glad you've touched on the aspect of education. I think Sweden has one of the best institutions for democracy in terms of university, the University of Gothenburg. And then I think they do amazing work. There's actually a professor I follow religiously from there, Professor Stenberg, I think. Yeah, so he does work with the varieties of democracy institute where they rank democracies. And so we even have a joke, we had a joke in my university that if you want to talk about democracy, you cannot talk about democracy without talking about Gothenburg and Sweden. Yes. And I know this is perhaps one thing that also your area of expertise as ambassador here must have been involved in, like uplifting democracy. So how has been your experience with that? You could also maybe touch upon with regards to the role that maybe the embassy played in the previous elections.
Yes. Now, I'm very proud also of the work done by the Gothenburg University and varieties of democracies, VDEM, that also receives support from the government of Sweden as part of my government's drive for democracy, where we work in all countries and where we have embassies present in a drive to strengthening the case and support for democracy. And I think the research done by VDEM is very, very useful. And I think they also get part of their contacts and figures and statistics from Zambia. So I think
and they have interesting rankings on us, but not today.
Yeah, but I hope that will change also to the better. Because I think it's been very interesting to be in Zambia those last 3 years. To experience the elections was amazing. I think that everyone who was part of the Zambian society or present in Zambia saw the tensions that were building up a bit. But still, Zambia have very strong credentials as being peaceful and to use elections to really make the voice heard. And I think this was a really, really good example how Zambia managed to once again show that rather peaceful transfer of powers is possible, and the use of the ballot box and the voting as a way of change and also making the voices heard. In the lead up to elections, we had a lot of focus from the embassy. We used development cooperation to support different organizations, also from civil society, but also the UN and their strengthening of democracy, where we also put in some support. We had several colleagues participating in the European Union election watch. That was, or a mission, it was a full-fledged mission, people coming also from Brussels and other parts of the world to stay in Zambia for several weeks and make a very thorough report. And we participated in it from the embassy side with several colleagues in different parts of Zambia doing election as part of the formal election. I also myself was out in different parts around Lusaka during the whole election, both before and also afterwards. And I think it's important to also do the reporting, the analytical work as much as possible, which we also did in the political section to fully understand what is going on and to report and share as much as possible. I think it was really very interesting to see how Zambia came out and now is one of the quite few on the continent, but also globally, that has a positive trend in strengthening and maturing democracy. So it was very interesting to be in Zambia. So I would like to commend again the Zambian people, and not least all the women and the young ones that went out. And I saw myself for hours and hours standing in long lines and queues to really make use of the democratic right of voting. Really beautiful to see.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'll just be turning off my video and I'm not speaking to improve my internet bandwidth. Okay, and I think also on behalf of the people from Zambia, I think thank you so much for the work that you are doing in the other cooperating countries in the European Union. And I think I went through the report, and there are a few recommendations that given based on the work that you did in observing the elections. And I think one important aspect is how to make sure nobody is left out in terms of voting and democracy. For example, I think you're having elections very soon in Sweden, and then the Swedish citizens that are resident in Zambia will also be privileged to vote. Could you just mention the importance of expats voting and how you believe maybe this will be a good addition in the upcoming elections in 2026?
Yes, I think inclusiveness is really important everywhere, and not the least when it comes to strengthening and building democracy, and to give everyone the right and the opportunity and the possibility to cast your vote. And that's why our embassy, the Swedish embassy in Lusaka, will be opening, I think, is it 5, 6, 7 days, a couple of hours for Swedish citizens to access and be part of our elections, general elections that will take place in September, this coming September. I think also there are very physical aspects that we also need to think about as Sweden, and maybe also as Zambia, the access for people with disabilities, opportunities for them to be able also to access and both the locals where the voting takes place, but also support to others with disabilities. The same, I think there has been discussions on voting in prisons and for inmates. And in Sweden, that is, they are, as every citizen and everyone with the right to vote, also part of our opportunities to vote. So being inclusive in terms of voting and in general in a democracy is crucial for the sustainability in strengthening and building democracy.
Thank you. And building on that, is it then, because we're going to move away to another topic right now, so I just want to get so much advice on democracy from a person from Sweden. Yeah, so do we is the idea of having the nota vote something we should look at in the future to increase participation, whereby we have the list of candidates that are there, but then we add none of the above, so that even as perhaps people want to exercise their right to vote, but their preferred candidate is not there, so they sort of protest the vote but they protest the vote by exercising their right to vote and not just staying back at home. So
I think in our experience, there is good with such a choice, because people might want to show clearly their support for the opportunity in a democracy to vote, but they are still not happy with the candidates. So in that way, I think it creates an important opportunity to even make that clear, where you support the right to vote, but you're not happy with candidates. That could be one way also of addressing it.
Yeah, thank you. So I think we can move on to the issue of the environment and climate change. Of course, right now, Sweden is definitely part of the conversation because of the work that Greta Thunberg has been doing. And then her protest in 2018 led a ripple effect that all over the world. We saw young people being active and speaking towards climate change. And what do you think are the action points, especially for a country like Zambia, based on your experience with regards to the fight for climate change moving forward?
I think that it's very important with examples and role models, if I may say, for the youth, such as Greta Thunberg. And I remember, because I was working very close to the Swedish Parliament when she started, and I was passing her, and she was sitting one person, one young, very small, teenager with her sign that says, on strike for the climate. And then to see within a year how that movement grew and what impact it had was quite amazing. So I think it's a very important message to everyone, and especially to the youth, that it can really make a difference, the engagement by the youth in different ways. And I think what she did, and there have then been a lot of Fridays for future kind of engagement and around the globe, and it's also in Africa. But there can be different ways. I think the most important is, because of the demographics and because the youth, it's your future. It's very important, the engagement by the youth. And there are climate activists in Zambia. I commend their work and their engagement. There are civil society organizations that are there. There are also different clubs, climate clubs discussions going on at schools. So I would recommend both teacher and children to engage. We have had as an embassy something that we call BioBlitz, and that is when we have been out working with a few schools, where we have had, in a quite nice but very concrete way, going out and looking at the nature and seeing in a square that is not big, to see what do you find in terms of biodiversity, plants, insects, everything, to just start a conversation on nature, on the environment, biodiversity, and ultimately the climate, because a lot is going on in the world, but I think that is probably still the most pressing issues that we have to deal with globally.
Speaking of the work that you do at the embassy, is this also part, is the initiatives where you cycle to work also part of saving the environment?
Yes. We do it in many different ways, but we have bought bikes. We are trying to be as environmental friendly as we can be. We have also different recycling systems. Our embassy is solar paneled, so it's renewable energy. We don't have anything else. We are even, I think, producing a bit extra that we can send out to the benefit of others in terms of energy. So I think all those steps that we can take as individuals, as small workplaces, as embassies, is important. And it's way also of showing that you can actually do something also in your own small way to contribute.
Yeah, but speaking of climate, because even for us as an organization, we do some research and work on climate. So I have got two questions. The first one is, how do we communicate the adverse effects of climate change? Let's say, for example, like to the young lady you mentioned who's doing enormous work in Eastern Province. And because in those same communities and other communities all over Zambia, you find these marginalized groups like women and young people are living on selling charcoal, meaning they have to cut down trees. And we know, of course, the effects of that on the environment. And then you come to the city, everybody is using plastic, and even the retailers, the big shops also, they're easily giving out plastics, even if they're selling it now, but it's only for like 1 kwacha, which, I mean, everyone is willing to pay for, at least as far as I know. So then how do we communicate the salience of climate change against this unfortunate backdrop?
I think it's a very good question. I think that it's very important that it becomes part of the curriculum and the discussion in schools. I think to reach out to young students via the schools and the teachers' engagement can be one very important way. I also think that communicating in a way that appeals to the youth using social media platforms where possible, reaching out via the different channels that are accessible. Not everyone have access to TV and to the opportunities to follow if there would be discussions there. I think radio is one way where there might be where it's an important platform to have that kind of discussion too. I think that the support that Sweden and other donors render to and offer via organizations in the area, we need to be clear that we would like to see that reaching out to the whole of Zambia, and that work is being done out in most and preferably all of the different parts of Zambia and in all provinces. So there is and are ways, and we are as an embassy actively going out in all parts of Zambia. I have myself visited all provinces, all 10 provinces. My colleagues that work have been all over Zambia as well. We try to communicate well around it, also to meet up at radio stations to talk about what we are doing out in the provinces. And there is really extremely important work being done by many of the UN agencies that are present in Zambia and that are active out as well. So basically finding different ways and tools, but also the ones that are accessible not only in the bigger and major cities, but to try to reach out in all parts of Zambia.
Thank you. And so before I open it up to the others to ask questions, and if you're part of the conversation, just I think there's an option for you to raise your hand or indicate in the chat box if you have a question. So there's a project we are doing as Amini, where we recently launched Climate and Environment Budget Tagging Tool, where we want to, it's a citizen-driven tool to monitor the green budget that the government has set aside. But what's the biggest challenge that we've had is to have the government to cooperate with us on this project. So what advice do you have for young organizations, especially like us, on how best we can lobby and work with government?
I think one entry point might be the Ministry and Minister for Green Economy and the Environment. And we have, as an embassy, and me myself also engaged a lot with the ministry and with the minister. And he was with a small delegation recently at a major environmental and climate conference in Stockholm called Stockholm 50 Plus. What I found very good was that part of the delegation was civil society that had 2 representatives also from the youth side. And I think that sends a signal, and I heard also from the minister and the ministry that they would like to engage with different actors and different stakeholders. And I think to just hold them accountable for that promise to push and maybe use that openness that at least I have seen at the new ministry to have that as an entry point. And then there are many ministers, ministries and others that needs to be engaged. There is, where there is an openness to engage, use that as an entry point, is my suggestion. And I wish you all the very best with that.
Thank you so much. And could you highlight at least maybe 1 or 2, 3 positives you've seen from the work of, let's say, civil society in Zambia, or several young people that you've seen doing work with, I mean, with regards to democracy, human rights, climate change, or anything that has been part of the agenda of your work here?
Yes. I think there are several organizations that we work closely with within the civil society. But I think one that has done a lot in terms of gender equality, looking at all aspects for women and girls in society, is NGOCC. I think their work have been and is very important in terms of highlighting the role of women and girls and their rights, and the importance of gender equality from all their aspects. So there, it's just one example as an umbrella that works with one of the more important to the embassy, to me, and to my government issues of gender equality.
Thank you. Chanda, you can ask. Chanda, you can ask your question. And while he's coming in, so by the time, are there any like culture shocks that you faced when you just got here?
Not that many, I think. Zambia was one of the first. I visited several countries in Africa, but I haven't been living for a long time in any other. I haven't been posted in any other African countries. I've been mostly in Asia. But I think what struck me was how open and friendly Zambians are. I felt very welcome. It felt very, very safe, very warm. I particularly liked, maybe coming from one of these Northern European countries that are seen a bit like we're a bit not very, almost always emotional, but I love the way you receive people when I go to the villages, and I've been to many villages, the way you receive by singing, chanting, and dancing. I love that. So it felt like part of me was really African in my heart by that. And already now I can see Sweden. I miss that. I think that was wonderful, really wonderful to see. So it wasn't so much of a shock. I think I felt very, very much at home. It felt very good. And I think Zambia has been, it's been 3 amazing, very good years. I will come back. I will come back and visit. I will try to find also ways to come back, other ways to come back, find and build on the cooperation and the excellent relations that we already have in my new position and my future work.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and I think it's a positive takeaway, especially from us, that it is one aspect of our culture we will keep having. Yeah, although some people say that Zambians are too friendly, like there should be a limit of being friendly, like we cross the limit. But now that you've mentioned that it's a good positive, we will definitely take it up.
Yeah.
Chanda.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Zumani, and thank you, Your Excellency, for the chat we've had thus far. And I like how you have engaged with the questions. It's very good and quite insightful. My question really, Your Excellency, is with how Sweden is performing very good as far as startups are concerned, at least in relative terms. So my question is, what is it that Sweden is doing that maybe Zambia can emulate as far as startups are concerned? Because I've seen there are very good startups, there are very good companies in Sweden that have made it on the global market. And this is something that Zambia is still struggling with. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's a very important question because we haven't spoken a lot about trade and investment and business and developing the economy. And I think that's the fundamentals for being able to do a lot in all other social sectors. So it's and given the structure and how it looks in Zambia, I think you would benefit a lot from developing small companies or structures, it's called startups, and also get a lot of the people that are now sort of in the more informal sector to have your own smaller business, but a bit more formal, that is able to grow. And I think in Sweden, what we usually say, which goes for both the smaller, the startups, medium-sized companies and bigger companies, is to have a predictable and stable climate. It doesn't always mean that you have to have incentives for a specific project or a specific sector. It means that the general conditions should be good. I think education is the basis of a lot, and having, as we have had, free education well, it's paid over, and universities as well, but it's paid over the budget. So it's taxpayers' money, so they come somewhere from. But having that approach that we should be as inclusive as possible, because a lot of talent out there can't otherwise find their way. So I think many of the successful entrepreneurs and startups, they have benefited from a very open, free education system initially that provides a good basis and general predictable and quite good conditions. There is, of course, also more specific support to startups that have been provided also from the state. Some has been identified as targeting specific sectors that has been part of analytical work. What is useful, what is good? And I think the hub around Stockholm, the capital for companies in the IT sector, with Skype, with Spotify, with all the gaming companies that are where Sweden is quite successful, has received some attention, and opportunities have been created around them. So I think that the current government in Zambia is stressing the importance of developing the economic sector, and just finding all these very I think ambitious, all these people that are still doing some kind of business, but get that into a bit more organized and structured form, I think would where you also would be able to increase your business and develop would be very useful. But most important is predictable, stable, and I would say non-corrupt practices. So being extremely strong on anti-corruption work, I think would make a huge difference for companies, for startups, and for everyone.
Thank you. And if you have a question, kindly indicate in the chat box, because we'll be wrapping up at 4 p.m. I'm glad he has mentioned something to do with business and the economy. Do we have Swedish companies that have come and invested in Zambia and are still in Zambia?
Yes. Some companies came. Yes, some companies came already before independence, when the mining sector was developing. So there are a number of Swedish companies that are providing quality equipment, heavy equipment to the mining sectors, to all the mines. So they have been based for a long time in the copper belt, most of them, and Andola, Kitwe, and around there. And they have still that as a regional basis, some of them. So they are in Zambia, but also supporting other countries from Zambia, from their location in Zambia. They will continue and be there. And then in the transport sector, we have Scania, there is Volvo on trucks and buses, both Swedish companies. But there is also very good examples of smaller companies that has been started by, in this case, a Swedish man, Mattias Olsson, and also his wife. It's a Zambian company, and they do clean cooking solutions with pellet stoves that is also very environmental friendly, where they also contribute, of course, developing their business, but also contributing to reducing the use of charcoal and deforestation. and that company is called Supamoto. So there are very different one. We are hoping and working hard to get more companies coming. So during the last EU-Zambia Business Summit that was held earlier in May, we had several new Swedish companies coming and looking at opportunities. And of course, we follow up with them. Health sector, also companies like H&M, which is in the clothing business, came and at least will look at the market. So I think we're quite hopeful for the future. And with a continued work on the business and investment climate and environment, and being very, very strong on anti-corruption and corruption measures, that would benefit really Zambia.
So with regards to business, do you have similar opportunities you have with education? Like when they have you mentioned through CEDA, they have the short courses. Are there some form of business to business engagements, like for young entrepreneurs?
I think that there are some of these training programs that are relevant. But some of the development cooperation that we do are supporting private sector development and also financial inclusion, because one of the challenges in Zambia that we have seen is that it's access to finance to develop business is very difficult. It's access to finance is a problem, is a challenge for everyone, but also for your business and for development. And we are supporting organizations that worked for greater inclusion and access to finance, which is a very concrete example on how you could also support, that we can do to support that part of development with development cooperation aid money.
Thanks. And so, because some people actually just joined, could you also highlight how people can actually access these opportunities?
We have quite an extensive program, but we work via different organizations also. So that is available on CEDA or embassy, but I would suggest that we are very active in communication. To follow us on Facebook and on Twitter, both where we will do postings when we do have rounds of scholarships or different programs. Usually we try also to reach out proactively to different organizations and education facilities when there are opportunities. But we are being as transparent as we can and communicate around it on our platforms. So that's a very concrete way of being able to see what we have.
Thank you. And before I ask you to give your closing remarks, Ambassador, what has been your biggest, best highlight during your time in Zambia?
Oh.
Apart from the dancing in the villages.
I was about to say dancing in the villages because it's about meeting people, but it's also a very beautiful country in terms of nature, the landscape. So my visits to the national parks have been really wonderful. I have had, especially, I think memorable was also visiting Liova Plains National Park, which is quite new, not as they do not have as many visitors as the other parks yet, maybe, but I think that was also what made it so beautiful to be out and walking, doing bushwalks and experiencing what beauty Zambia has to offer. So of course I support all efforts to get more tourists, even if some of the highlights are more when it's less people and less tourists out there. But otherwise, it's definitely the meetings in the villages, I would say, and meetings with and engagement with many of these, especially women and younger girls, that I think is so rewarding to me.
Thank you so much. And I'm glad that the major highlights came from the rural communities and not the urban, which speaks a lot to the work that you did, that you focused more on the marginalized groups out there. And we hope that your work will continue through the embassy, and we will communicate. I'm sure many of us are excited to learn about the many opportunities that your country is providing through the embassy here, and we actually look forward to many engagements. Any final words, Ambassador?
I would like, just from the bottom of my heart, thank all Zambians and Zambia for 3 amazing years. And I've been so privileged to be able to travel in all parts in Zambia and really engaging people to people. I think that has been so rewarding, and that also gives me the opportunity to see how our work and engagement with Zambia has also benefited quite many. And that is something that I am able, when I'm back in Sweden, also to talk about, because ultimately this is Swedish taxpayers that are contributing to the development cooperation that we are able to have. And I may say that the support is very strong, even though times are a bit tougher now with war and Russia's aggression in Ukraine. But the support and our government support for long-term engagement in terms of development cooperation is still there, and it's very strong. So we are staying, and I'm very happy to see that positive steps are taken in terms of maturing the democracy, and I hope that results are going to be seen among people and the youth, which is really, really important to show that democratic principles and democracy delivers for everyone. So continue to work on the inclusiveness for everyone, and not the least the youth and women and girls. Zikomo Kwambili.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And on that note, indeed, democratic principles deliver for everyone. Ambassador, thank you so much. And on behalf of everyone from Amini Centre for Policy Research, we wish you all the best in your next endeavor, and we hope you will visit Zambia soon, and you will continue to tell the amazing stories of your time here. Thank you so much again, and have a great afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.